ultimate NRL experience. With non-stop action and top-notch analysis, this is the podcast for all rugby league fans. So join us for a deep dive into the world of rugby league and don't miss a beat of the action.
We're back. I hope you didn't miss us. It's another episode of the Gone for 10 show. This week, it's the West Tigers, the Penrith Panthers, the Cronulla Sharks. You have your premiers, you have your top four easy run team, and you have, let's not talk about it, the West Tigers. But obviously, they have Bill, but Baxter, we'll jump into each team. But, mate, thank you for joining me. Quick thoughts before we go through their ins and outs and their season previews of each of these teams?
Yeah, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get into it.
Well, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off. We're probably going to rip it off with arguably the better team here, the best team here. Now, no disrespect to the Sharks, but it is the Penrith Panthers. Their losses, Jermaine Hopgood to the Eels, Robert Jennings to the Dolphins, Kickout to the Dogs, Coruscant to the Tigers. We'll talk about that in a second. Sean O'Sullivan to the Dolphins, Charlie Staines to the Tigers. Their gains, Jake Cogger, Tyrone Peachey, Luke Garner, Zach Hoskin, Jesse McLean. Now, we'll talk about it with the Tigers, but just looking at their losses, Coruscant, Kickout, Jennings, Hopgood, Sean O'Sullivan might not play a lot, but great backup Charlie Staines. Then I look at their gains. Is this a Penrith side that's been hit with you're too successful, your players' prices, they want more money, or is it just players are starting to realise that there's youngsters coming up, they care about the club, let these youngsters go in and I'll go make my own legacy?
Yeah, they've been hit with the minimum salary cap payments for representative players. So I think it should be changed in a way, like maybe just for juniors. Let's say you like your Brian, you bring a junior in. Maybe they look at maybe 25% off his salary, his whatever he's earning. 25% it gets waived by the NRL, so just only for juniors, because you could probably sit here and say out of the starting 13, probably maybe 5 aren't juniors, but the rest of them, maybe this is the way it should be done. Bring your juniors in, and if it was a rule where you could save some money in the salary cap for bringing juniors up, I think your pathways would be more open, and I think the NRL would re-look at bringing that under-20s Toyota Cup competition back, because as a fan and a friend of many players who were there from high school, it was good to see you just chuck it on the Saturday game at 11 a.m. There's your guys that you went to high school with, and you're watching them play, whether it was Manly, Raiders, or Mounties, or any or elsewhere. It was just good to see. And I think maybe if we could go down that road and bring back the Toyota Cup competition back, it would be interesting. But Kickout, Coruscant, Nathan Cleary 2.0, and Charlie Staines, they're big losses, very, very big losses. You got Kickout, who given the ball is going to run over your front line. Coruscant, another hooker who's learning his craft. First player, was it the first player to win four rings at 3 different clubs? Not too sure. There was a rumor going around that he might be the first. We'll have to confirm
that. It's definitely the first player to talk shit about your new club and then get named captain, but we'll talk about that one when we get to that squad.
I didn't want to bring it up. If anybody's going to file a defamation suit, it was Tony, not me, Tony. But their gains, Tyrone Peachey, Luke Garner, Zach Hocking, Jake Corrigan, and Jesse McLean. Like Tyrone Peachey, I think he's a bit of a not washed up, but I think his best football days are behind him. He left Penrith, went to the Titans, was okay there for a while, went sort of in and out of first grade to reserves, then to the Tigers, and then sort of did the same, and now he's back to the Penrith Panthers. I think this is a player who sort of his better days of football behind him. So I think they are, to answer your question, I think they are been hurt by being too successful, and I think maybe they need to tweak the rules about the salary cap and whatnot. Around that sort of thing needs to be tweaked and looked at.
All I want to say is no one had these opinions when it was the Roosters that were too successful. The sombrero joke came out, and we didn't want to help lower the salary cap. Now, I think you're probably not going to get that the youth gets you a discount. I'd be all for if you're at a club for 2 to 3 years or 5 years or something like that, then you get a reduction because if you were to do that this year, you could have the Panthers that have a squad worth $20 million and you got the Dolphins that have no juniors because it's their first year in the competition. So
Yeah.
I think it's a bit skeptical. Then you got to look at their ground that they can breed from. There's a lot more players in Western Sydney than there is in Canberra. So now you're damaging Canberra. Now you're damaging, say, the Roosters and Souths who are so close together. There's a battle for those players where, mate, if I'm a junior growing up, I'm not going to Parramatta. I'm going to the Penrith Panthers. Let's be completely honest. And obviously, another prospect that they have got coming up, Lindsay Smith, good mate of ours. He's absolutely killing it. Had a cracking game on the weekend, and that's another example. He could now be at Penrith for the next 5 or 6 years, and he keeps getting drip fed, where he goes to another club and he could get it every single 80-minute game. So who knows what the correct answer is, but I look at their losses, same thing. I look at Jennings, I look at Kickout, I look at Coruscant, I look at Sean O'Sullivan, especially when Cleary was suspended and at Origin. I look at their gains. Luke Garner, he's in the starting lineup this week. Zach Hoskin, he's in the starting lineup this week. Tyrone Peachy, he might not be the best signing, but really it's a one-season signing, so it gives you depth. And what have you got to lose? At the end of the year, he's not good enough. See you later. We're done with you.
Where do you reckon he's going to play though, Peachy? Like apart from all the other players, because they're well known where they're going to play. Where's Peachy going to play? He's going to be playing left side center, or is he going to play 9, or is he? Where do you think he's going to play? If he's a one-season wonder, where's he playing?
I'm not calling him a one-season wonder. I'm calling him he is a reserve for one season. Now, like you just mentioned, he can play center, he can play hooker. If he had to jump in another position, he can play fullback. Like, he can do all these positions. So I think for Penrith, it was, we've lost these players. Let's get him in. We don't plan to use him too much. But if we have to, boom, we've got a replacement. Boom, Origin, we've got a replacement who has experience. So I think that's more so where they're going to use him, if that makes sense to you. Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Just
so
for one season, I think it's a bit optimistic. You know, you still had Charlie Staines, who had, I think, 2 years to go there, and he could play center, he could play wing, not play 9. Not as experienced as Tyrone Peachy, but you already had a player on the book. So why release?
Would you take Charlie Staines at the Cowboys?
I wouldn't take either of them, Peachy or Staines. I wouldn't. If you offered them, you have to pay me to keep them at my club, the Cowboys. Otherwise, I just don't want any of them. I'd rather Sean O'Sullivan.
Well, in the end, you've also got to think of it. You look at Tyrone Peachy. We spoke about Penrith Panthers. They're under that salary cap restraint. They got rid of, obviously, a 2-year contract. They brought in Peachy, who took a pay cut to come to them. So maybe it was that we got a replacement. One player out the door, Charlie Staines, a player in that wants a pay cut, a player that wants to be at the club. And now we can re-sign players that we want to keep. So maybe it was that, maybe it wasn't. I don't really know. I'm not going to ask Lindsay because I'm not going to make him answer that question. But
I think you should.
I'm definitely not going to ask him that. But my last question for you, without going into too much detail, if you had to give a percentage 0 to 100, what's your percentage that this team can go back to back to back?
It's never in the modern day football since 1998. That's happened before. I'm going to say 80%, and that is only because you're too successful. Now you've lost Appy, kick out this year. Last year you lost a few other players. Berto, especially, left side center, you lost him. Now, the more successful the Panthers are going to get, the more the reliance they're going to be on their juniors to come through and fill these spots, like or Steve Crun, who they lose next year. There's a right hand center that they're going to have to replace as well. So there's another player. And then now they need a 9 who's going to click with Jerome and Nathan as well as Isaiah Yeo, as well as the forward pack with Liam Martin, who I think is shifting from left side to right side back row. So the more successful as they get, the worse it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt them, the squad more via the salary cap. So that's why I say 80%. I'm not writing them off, but I have them in my top 4.
I mean, you've been absolute fucking crazy, man, to write this side off. We saw they had success through all the age groups. We saw their reserves tear apart Parramatta for the most part on the weekend. They're the current champions. They killed the Queensland side that they went up against. So you'd be a very, very crazy man. But we didn't do this last podcast. And obviously, I'm going to ask you now, and you're going to have to the end of the episode to think of your own. Just a random question, a random thought, a random question we're going to throw out there. What was your first car that you ever owned, Baxter?
First car.
Your first car that you ever owned?
First car that I ever owned, it was a 2001 champagne-colored Ford Laser sedan, manual. Aircon was a luxury because if I put the aircon on for 30 minutes, half my tank went. So I think it was one of those days where you have to pay extra for an aircon, but it's not like these days where you can have the aircon running all trip long and it doesn't affect your fuel gauge or anything. So windows down with my sort of thing, and Bluetooth in the car was not a thing. I was listening to cassettes.
Well, there you go. Mine was a Mazda 323 Estina, but obviously I did have that little. I had a little shit box that I learnt manually in, which I don't know if you can really count that as my first car because we both, mine and my sisters, learnt to drive manual in that. But obviously, my first car was a Mazda Estina, so I can't complain too much. But I know I'm going to rattle you, so I'm going to give you the next 2 teams to think about your one for the end. I will have another one to go, but let's jump into the next team. I'm throwing it to you because I ain't saying that many names. It's the Tigers. Talk me about their 2023 losses, their 2023 gains, your thoughts on this squad moving forward. Mitchell Moses, will he sign? We've seen the contract he's been offered, and obviously Johnny Bateman's still stuck over in England. Talk to me about it.
All right, you got F. Brown to the Dogs, you got L. Gardner to the Panthers, you got O. Gillard to the Dolphins, you got Jay Hastings to the Knights, you got L. Luciana, who went to the Cowboys mid-season, you got Jay Little to the Dragons. You got Jay Madden to the Brisbane Broncos. You got T. McKellar to the Warrington Wolves. Z. Musgrove to the Dragons. T. Peachy to the Panthers, we just touched on. Jay Roberts retired. Another player who injuries just ridiculed him because back when he was at CRC, he was just Jimmy the Jet was the nickname, and he earned that for a reason. You got Jay Talmo back to the Cowboys. You got K Talangai to the Manly Seagulls. You got C Staines. You got A Sukuru. You got W Smith. B Weckham. S Funny. I Papali'i. F Paul. B J Tamaku. A Coruscant. D Clemmer, and J Bateman, who, those last 3, I think, are a big, big game for the Tigers, especially when you've got the likes of Benji Marshall, Robbie Farah, and the late great man that's coaching them now. Now you're gonna have to tell me. Hey, he's the last. Mate.
Think about it.
He was the last coach to win Tigers a premiership. That's how bad.
TS. That's your hint. TS.
TS. We'll just leave it at that. That's just going to be his name from now on until Tim Sheens. Thank you.
There we go.
Look, he's the last successful coach at the Tigers, and now he's back for 2 seasons with Benji to carry on after for 3. Bateman, I loved him when I was at Canberra. I thought he was just this rough and ready player. He suited Ricky's Raiders, and he made it the grand final for a reason. He's going to be another big pickup for the Tigers. Clemmer, he's going to be another rag doll who's just going to get in there, get down and dirty, but at a cost, maybe. We'll see how many penalties he gives away. But Appy, the man, as you touched on, who sort of said some negative things about his future employers.
What do you mean by sort of? What do you mean by sort of? It was live on television.
I'm allegedly, so I can't get defamed. Allegedly, he came out and said some negative words to his future employers, and now he's named captain of that club. Now, look, I think it's more water under the bridge with the Tigers with his comments. Isaiah Papali, another one, is a big gain. So I don't have them coming last, but they are in my bottom 9. So hopefully they can move slowly up the ladder.
I don't have this team coming last. I'd have to look at my ladder again, but I don't have them coming anywhere near that bottom 4. Now, I could be proven wrong, but I look at the likes of Api Coruscant, his distribution from hooker, his distribution from dummy half, Clemmers, Mongrel, Bateman. I don't know if his body's gone. Heck, I don't even know if he's going to get into the country because he still isn't here. So most likely he's not playing round 1. Isaiah Papali, the transfer to almost didn't happen. He now gets to go in there. He has that mongrel. He has that experience. He's been in the team that has that run to the grand final. He's felt grand final losses. So he's going to be better for that. Charlie Staines might not be the best player. He's a young player. He's going to come in. He's trying to earn a contract. He's trying to prove everyone wrong. I look at their losses. Luke Garner, yeah, okay, massive loss. Gilded, maybe a big loss. Jackson Hastings, he led the team, but I think they're better off putting the money into these Clemmers, Coruscants, Batemans and keeping Jackson. Leilua, he left last year. He's been better for it. Jacob Little, Appy's a massive improvement on there. Jock Madden, not going to be missed too much. James Tarmow, well, he's a great player, but we saw that brain snap come the end of last season. So for me, this West Tigers team is a team that's stepping in the right direction. They're trying to build, and I think by the time Benji does take over, that 2, maybe even needs a third year of Tim Sheens if it hasn't gone the whole way. But in the next 2 seasons, this team's building towards a team that can be successful. And I guess my last question to you, Mitchell Moses, a 5-year deal, 1.3 million per year for the Tigers, or a 4-year deal, 1.1 million per year with the Parramatta Eels. If you look at both teams, are you persuaded by the Tigers and their way they are moving forward? Is it an easy signature to sign for Parramatta?
Well, the NRL stands for something. And it's not very long. So personally, if I was in Mitch Moses' boots, I'll be signing with the Tigers. I think the way that they're planning to go forward looks better than Parramatta at the moment. Like, this is a Parramatta squad that just doesn't seem to really add a lot into their starting 13 every year. And, you know, they're always talking about, oh, we're going to make top 4, and they always get there, and they always just crumbled over week 2 or week 1 of the finals. And they did that year in, year out and didn't really add anything to their starting lineup. So do you jump ship of a ship that's going, in my opinion, down and go to this Tigers squad that might be going up, and take a little bit of more, take a bit of coin for yourself? I would, but that is the choice he has to make, and make himself alone.
100%. Now, I think it's an exciting team. I think they're moving forward. So if you can add a Mitchell Moses to this squad, yes, he hasn't won a premiership, but he has guided his team, obviously, to the grand final last year. He's guided them into the finals year after year. So, like you said, Parramatta, great team, but I tried to hold that back. But thank you. Parramatta, great team, but again, it's not always about the money, but for an extra $2 million, a team moving forward, I'm probably going to give the Tigers a bit of a punt. It's not Ronaldo, $200 million a season, obviously money, but an extra couple million, you might get injured. You might not play after that. I'm looking after my family. But let's move into the last team. But before we do that, I want one question. Are they in your bottom 4, or are they in your top 5 of the bottom half? So I'll let you get that up. Let me know what you think. I'm probably leaning towards the top 5 of my bottom half, my bottom 9.
My first draft, which is the one I sent to you, I have them in my top 5 of the bottom half of the table.
There we go. I was going to say, you have to put that in there. Top 5 of the bottom half. Top 5
Yeah,
of the
so
bottom
I
half.
have them in the top 5 of the bottom half of the table. So they will not play finals football, but they will not come last. Now, you told me to think of a question to you, Tony.
No, whoa. We're not done yet. You're going to give that
No.
after the next team. We've got one team to go. Then you
Well,
can ask your question.
oh, okay.
All right. So let's move on. I have them in the same position, but I have been wrong about the Tigers before. I say the same thing about the Warriors every year, and they end up in my bottom 4, and I'm very disappointed. But let's move on. It's the Cronulla Sharks. Their losses: Fafita retired, Luke Metcalf to the Warriors, who, holy shit, he had a blinder on the weekend. Lachlan Miller to the Knights, Franklin Pele to the Dogs. Another player had a blinder on the weekend, and Aiden Tolman retired. Their gains: Daniel Atkinson, Sam Stonestreet, Max Bradbury, Sateni Takamoa, and Oregon Kafusi. And I love that I gave myself the easy teams in this podcast. But for me, this is a Sharks side who, I don't know what you're going to say. They had an easy draw. They did make top 4, but it was a very easy draw. But it's a side for me that can excite. They can play good football. They can throw the ball around. They've just named their coach again now for another, I think, to the end of 2027. So he's there for the next 5 seasons. So obviously massive props to Craig Fitzgibbon. He's got that contract a year into it. He's got the extension. So massive props to him. But what do you make of this squad, Baxter? Now, you might say it was an easy draw. You might say, hey, it was an easy draw, but they still had to win games. Where are you at with this Cronulla Sharks side?
I'm with the latter of the two. They did get an easy draw, but again, they still had to go out there and they tried it out and they won those games. So would we be saying the same thing if they went out and versed the same teams and lost? And no. So they did what they again. This is the NRL. The NRL teams do not have a choice of who and what and when they play these teams or how many times they play, whether it's once or twice. So they just got given what they were dealt. They did what they did, and they end up coming second in the whole thing after the regular season. So big loss to Aiden Tolman and Andrew Fafita and Lachlan Miller. Their gains, I'm not confident on what they're about. I haven't seen them play, so I can't really speak to that. But if this is just a sort of turn over the crop sort of thing for Cronulla, I expect another successful season next year with finals football in their sort of future.
100%. Now, obviously, you've got to give respect. Easy draw, whatever you want to call it. I think it's an easy draw if you look at where teams finish, but if all those teams they played came out and made the top 8 last year, we're probably saying it's one of the hardest draws in the competition. So massive props to the side. But talk to me about Craig Fitzgibbon. He was given a 3-year deal. It was his first year last year. He's now been extended until 2027 or 2028. So he's there for at least another, I think, 5 seasons. What are your thoughts on Craig Fitzgibbon as a coach? And moving forward, is there a premiership under his reign in the horizon?
Yeah, I think there is a ring to come back to Cronulla with Craig Fitzgibbon at the helm. I think he was a great assistant coach at the Roosters. He had head coach written all over him. Only time would tell that he would improve his coaching ability to then go on to whichever club he picked at the time. This is talking about before he had signed with the Cronulla Sharks. He took his time and he picked the right team that he believed were going forward. Picked the Sharks. I think it may be a little bit too early as a board to give him a big extension because, yes, he killed it in his first year, and yes, you could say they were lucky. But what happens if this season, next season, and the season after that, they play no finals football at all, and it just looks doom and gloom? Would it be better if they said, all right, he's had a good first season. This season, his second season. Let's just see how it goes. Then give him a 2-year extension, which will give him to 2023, 4, 5, 2020 to the end of 2026. Then if it does, the team sort of goes off a clip and starts to head down. They don't have to pay out as much. I just think boards are too easily rushed into extending coaches for a long period of time when they don't really have the sort of the backing and the side of but sort of the nuance. Like if it was a Trent Robinson, a Craig Bellamy, or Wayne Bennett, you give an extension any time of the day because you know they're going to get done. They're going to get it done. But we've seen it with Tony Seibolds when he went to the Brisbane Broncos. He was given a 5-year deal, and in only a year and a half into that 5-year deal, he crumbles and burns, and he walks out of the Brisbane. He walks away from the Brisbane Broncos with a 5-year payout. So that's what I would see as just a board. But good on Craig and his management for getting the extra extended period. I hope it's not doom and gloom this year, next year, and whatever years after that. I hope they go up and up and up for him.
100%. Now, I see both ways. Like you said, it's a massive risk if he falls to shit. If Nico Hines stops performing this and that, but there is not many good young coaches out there that I guess are committed to. He sat down, he convinced Nico Hines, he convinced Dale Finucane to come play for him, and he had no fucking resume. He had no first grade head coaching experience, maybe 1 or 2 games with the Roosters when Trent Robinson was sick. He was able to sit down and go, guys, this is my plan, this is my vision for the club. And these players went, yeah, you know what? We'll leave Melbourne and we'll come play for you. So I think there is something special in him. He does know Fitzgibbon's ins and outs of his system. So you could see a very successful club. So maybe, like you said, 2-3 years, lock him down a little bit, and then try to lock him in more after that. But nonetheless, a massive, massive rap to Fitzgibbon. I think he did a massive job. You look at the likes of Nico Hines, his first proper year in that halfback position, killed it. Won Dally M. I think it was the most points ever by Dally M, the biggest margin by Dally M, whatever it was. He absolutely killed it. You look at Talakai. He was a fringe forward who turned into an origin center. Like, he's scouted his players. He's worked his players. So I think maybe a little bit too far of a contract. He had 23, he had 24. Maybe give him 25, like you said. And then, hey, if you make finals this year, you get 26 and 27. Maybe that's what they should have done. But nonetheless, I think this Shark side is going to be very scary for years to come. And like you said, there's another premiership ring on their way. Whether it's this year or not, it's going to happen very soon. But Baxter, it's your time. It's your time to shine. Don't make me regret it. Give me your question.
What was your first gift that you sort of present gift, whatever you want to call it, that you just remember and you've just cherished it for a very long time? For me, it was 2001 Christmas. My parents gave me a Game Boy Color. My grandmother gave me Pokemon Crystal, and to this day, I still have both in working order.
Now, I do love that you said Pokemon Crystal, because that was actually my first Game Boy and my first game. So we're on the same page there. It probably helps that we're very similar in age and knew each other growing up. But I have the worst memory. Let's just put it out there. But if I look back to my life as it's progressed, I'm going to have to say it was probably a soccer jersey or a soccer boot or a soccer ball when I was a really young kid, because, hey, we played, 15, 20 years of soccer already. I've gone to America and played the college system. I've played now. Heck, I've had 2 surgeries because of this sport. But, yeah, I think I'd have to say that. And obviously, hey, when your dad's a Chelsea fan and he gives you a United jersey, thank your blessings the way Chelsea's playing at the moment. So maybe it's that first ever Ryan Giggs jersey with the little pop-up collar that I got. But, yeah, you've got me on the spot. It's a very good question. But let's lock in the first soccer ball I got. I think that's a very, very big momentum. And then from there, like you said, the Game Boy. That was our generation. Crystal, what a bloody game! I wish I knew where mine was. I think I know where the Game Boy is. I don't know where Crystal is, and that's the issue. So
I've got
maybe I'll
mine
have to...
still. I just cracked it open the other day, just because my son, who's 2.25 now, he was watching Pokemon. He was getting really into the original generation, and then sort of popped that on and sort of looked at it and just sort of reminisced and went delete, start a new game. Man, that's my current thing at the moment, just starting a new game of Crystal. So bringing the childhood out of me.
I did have another question, but I'm going to throw this one at you.
Okay,
the original starters. Who are your original starters? Let's throw it that way first.
Because I got Crystal first over yellow and blue, red, blue, and yellow. So that was my starters. So that was Chikorita, grass type, Totodile, the water type, and Cyndaquil, the fire type. I always took the fire type. It wasn't because, fire's better. It just, tactically, there wasn't a stronger fire type out there. It's why I went with that. And when you come up to the Elite Four, it is the strongest fire type in Generation 2 before you go over to Generation 1, and then you try and catch a wild magma. So it was all tactics. That's why I'd go with those starters.
Well, I'm going to throw a bit of a shock here because I don't think I've gone with this type in any other Pokemon game, Pokemon this, but the Pokemon type I went with was actually Totodile. Now, I don't know if it's because he looked the coolest. I really don't know why. He wasn't the strongest. Let's just put it out there. Maybe I wanted a bit of a challenge because it definitely wasn't for tactics because I was 6 years old and I had no idea what was going on besides, oh shit, my Pokemon died. Let's take it. I
got given the book. I had the book. So that was my grandmother. She always gave me the game and the book. And so I just sort of read through it on Christmas Day and studied it, but just sort of seeing everything. And I remember writing down, every gym leader's weakness and made a team up solely based on that to beat the Elite Four. And, because, you go in, as soon as you beat the fourth gym, you get Surf, and then you can surf down to get a level 20 Lapras. Then later on, you get a level 30 Red Gyarados. So there's your water covered for me. So that's why I went with a fire type, not Chikorita, because Chikorita sort of in the early days was a bit weak coming up against the gym leaders early on.
Well, I can tell you what, you just turned Pokemon into a homework task by writing all those things in. But final question. Have you done with your son, I'm not going to say his name because I'm not going to put that on the podcast, but have you done the 3 starters, Charizard, Bulbasaur, and I'm going blank here, and Squirtle? Have you done those 3 starters with him?
No, I haven't. I don't think I will. He's sort of all over the shop at the moment because, it's either Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers movie, it's either Minions, then it's either Buzz Lightyear, the one that just come out, or it's Toy Story he's into, or it's Pokemon, or it's Paw Patrol, or just off the top, Paw Patrol, or it's what he calls Wheel, which is Firebuds on, I'm going to say Binge, but he's just all over the shop. So maybe I will give it, maybe when he turns 3 later at the end of this year, maybe I'll buy all 3 of them and see if, maybe all 4, because Pikachu does become one.
No, you're not allowed to pick Pikachu. No, you're not allowed to pick Pikachu.
Did you ever play Yellow? Because in Yellow, you get given Pikachu. In Yellow, you get given Pikachu. Then after you beat the second gym and beat Misty, you get given a Charmander. Then you go down to the daycare after you've gone up to Bill after this on your way to the 3rd gym in Lieutenant Surge, and to the daycare you get a Bulbasaur, and after you beat Lieutenant Surge and his Raichu, then you get a Squirtle. So in Yellow you get all 4, so he has to be a starter.
You know what? Give me Fire Red all day because I'm taking Charmander out of those 3 and we're taking out the Elite 4. But we've gone on a bit of a rant, but it's always good to go on a bit of a rant. So, drop below.
I got one more question because we didn't do it on the last pod and we didn't do it on the last pod of that. We want to do at the end of at the end of the everything. It's just a random thought or whatever. You're at a home barbecue and they're cooking sausage sizzles. Are you grabbing one bread or are you grabbing 2 pieces of bread?
Now this came up because we had a very good day on Australia Day. We thought we'd FaceTime you to ask you this question, but I'm going single bread, mate. I'm slapping a sausage senga on 1 piece of bread. I'm closing it up. I'm putting some barbecue sauce and I'm good to go. But yeah, the 2 bread shit, if you're putting tomatoes, lettuce and stuff, cheese, whatever, okay, go for it. But if it's just a sausage and sauce, you're chucking it in 1 piece of bread.
You've got to have a bit of onion too. A bit of seasoned onion that's been cooked on there, so you can put it in there with your barbecue sauce. Has to be barbecue. Can't go tomato. All those tomato freaks out there just goes, just your taste buds are shit. And don't give me but barbecue sauce is made up of tomatoes anyway. It doesn't matter. It tastes just bloody better. It just tastes supreme. It's superior to tomato sauce. So,
mate, I am all for barbecue sauce. I am all for barbecue sauce. Get the little red lid with the one with the spicy barbecue sauce, and you're knocking it up a level. But Baxter, mate, thank you for joining me. It was the Tigers, Panthers, Sharks. We're both in agreement that we'll see probably 2 of these teams come semi-finals time this year. Tigers, we're still on the fence, but there's going to be a lot of improvement. So, mate, thank you for joining me. We'll be back next week, obviously, with the final 2 teams, which are now the Roosters and the Cowboys, which we have left for that reason. That is who we support. As you can tell right here, I'm a Rooster supporter. The idiot over there is a Cowboy supporter who lives in New South Wales, who goes for Queensland. So give him some hate in the comments. But Baxter, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you soon about our 2 teams.
Yep, peace.
Now the stage is set for the best season yet.